Welcome to the Vigor Life Podcast, a source of inspiration, lessons, stories, skill sets, mindsets, and strategies to invigorate and expand all areas of your life.
Hey, what's going on? Coach Luka back here with the Vigor Life Podcast, the first one in 2019. So I'm not going to do like any New Year's resolution stuff or anything like that, but I am going to bring up something that I think is I believe is a huge bottleneck, actually, including for me. Like for many years, I've always been a hashtag hustler, but being able to focus on, a more zoned in approach to like, what are the most important things? So, books from essentialism to the one thing to, 80-20 by Perry Belcher. I'll touch on actually a bunch of these, I would say, success principles here, but it's like really zoning in and cutting out all the fluff and doing what's most important, both in business and in life. And this has become, this is one of those things that you keep working on, right? So you practice it and you build that skill set, because it's not like, oh, I figured it out. I read this book and all of a sudden, like now I only do the most important thing, right? It takes work to keep cutting out the unnecessary. And a lot of times, like cutting out the unnecessary leaves you time to do more of what matters. And so you got to get clear on what matters, right? And then right now, this is a time where a lot of people, I would say towards the end of the year, beginning of the year, becomes like the, let's reflect back. What do I want to change this year? What goals do I want to achieve? And of course, like I own gyms and I'm in fitness, and that's like a massive goal. For a majority, I would say, of people in the world, not just in the U.S., but most people end up falling off, right? And I would say that part of it is because of what I'm going to talk about today. And so I'm going to cover about 20 plus ideas around how to be more, I don't say the word productive, but just get shit done, like the things that you truly, really, want in life. And any of these, like the reason why I wanted to do this today too is because, you may just resonate with one a ton as I mention it. Okay, great. And like, as always, I'm going to try to do some application drills and some questions so that you got to answer yourself and, do them, right? Do them. I just did a podcast with Mike Robertson on his podcast, and I finished off, really just saying like, look, this might have sounded all great. Like the only thing that matters is that you take something from what you've learned, right? So this is consumption, right? When you read a book, it's consumption. When you listen to podcasts, it's consumption. When you watch a course video, it's consumption. And that's all great because that's knowledge, it's learning. But to, I always say like, man, you gotta be careful to not just consume and not create. I think there's a point in time where you want to try to create as much as you consume, if not more. But the kicker is that the information that you get, so this is information, that you turn it into integration. And when you integrate, that turns into transformation. So like that's, information goes to integration, goes to transformation. And most of the time it stays at information, right? And I'd rather you listen like 10 minutes of the podcast, something hits you, pause it, stop, go do that work. Like I always say, it's kind of like reading. I mentioned before that I read in the morning. And my morning reading is always just to get to a revelation. It's not necessarily to read 50 pages or 40 pages or whatever else it may be. It's once I get to the aha moment, I stop, I write out what my revelation was and what actionable step I can take from that revelation, right? Many times I'll share it. So when you guys see me put some IG posts up, a lot of times that was like an aha moment for me from something that I read. I post it up and then it's like, okay, how can I implement this into my day, into my life, and, move forward towards what I want to achieve. So that's very, very important. And I would have you consider that, like I said, that you do that, because it's much better to listen to 15 minutes of a podcast and actually take action from it than listen to an hour of it and go like, man, that was great info. Go on about your day, don't change anything. Then it doesn't really matter. So with that said, big idea number one, the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. A lot of stuff like starts and ends with that, which, Pareto principle, and like you guys probably heard of this, is that, 80% of the desired results come from 20% of the causes or the effort, right? So, I want to talk about taking this law to the extreme. And if you guys have read Perry Belcher's book, 80-20, it's kind of like, okay, what's the 20% of the stuff that you're doing that's getting you 80% of the results? that goes for training, that goes for business, that goes for, home life, relationships, recovery, you name it, which realm it's in, that's you're going to have that 80-20. The thing is that most of the time people don't even stop to figure out what that 80-20 is, right? But taking it to the extreme means that once you got the 80-20, then you do another 80-20 of the 80-20, right? So that basically becomes, my math right now is not being phenomenal, but think about it this way, right? Like you end up you continuously dissect it, that once you got the 80-20, you go like, okay, now this 20% that I got, what's the 20% of that, right? And you kind of come down to like the most important things, and you go like, hey, look, if I could only do a couple of things, what would those things be that give me the vast majority of the results, and then invest more time, energy, focus, and practice into those, right? So, but let's go with, what is your primary purpose? And, we look at bigger company stuff like, Starbucks has coffee, Google has search. What about you, right? What's your primary purpose? And you could dissect this, and what's your primary purpose in life is a big question, usually not one that you can answer like right away, but, what's your primary purpose in business? Like, what are you here to do? Like, for me, I understand, like, I want to be like, my purpose is to become the greatest coach, and I would say gym owner, and teach others around the world how to do it best on both sides. Like, that's what I realized. Like, and I want to affect, hundreds of thousands of coaches, and with that, millions of people. And yeah, those are big numbers, but I do believe that, like, that's my zoned in focus. And it took me a while to even get that clarity, because people will say, well, you do a lot of stuff and you own real estate and you're trying to buy more real estate. Absolutely. But like, those are the side effects of this main purpose that I have, right? I believe we are in the best industry in the world, the one that can change and help people more than any other industry, not to knock on other industries. And to me, I look at Vigor Ground as the lab to work on how to help clients get better results, help them change for good, sustainably, how to build better cultures and communities and connections, like what people seek out, tribes, and how to improve customer service, how to do better marketing through what we're doing, and go deep, right? Because remember, I talk about you can go wider, you can go deep. Well, it's to go deep into that, become the best at it on the planet, and then teach other fit pros. And I would say just anybody in the health and fitness industry that can affect people like that, how to do that, right? That's my purpose. So, and you can start this with, hey, I've been put on this planet to become or to do. I like become, because becoming means is different. Becoming means is who you are. Doing is like you could do something for a little bit and then stop, right? So I've been put on this planet to become. What comes to you? What comes to your mind, right? And I'll give you a pause there a little bit. Remember, like, hey, dude, when I go through this, I can't, sometimes I do a workshop style. I can't do it with you, but, you can do it two ways, which is stop, actually write this stuff out, or, write these things out and, block out an hour tonight, tomorrow, whatever it is, to work on these things. But the reason I have like questions and applications to life is so that so we can actually integrate this, right? Remember, we said information, integration, transformation. So the big idea number 2 here is the dominoes in your life. So if you guys ever play dominoes, I used to be a kid. I used to always do the crazy domino paths, and I knock one down so all of those would go and always be fun. But a domino can knock down a second domino that's 50% larger than itself. And if you use this principle, you can start small and quickly move into the realm of extraordinary. Really what it comes down to is like, how do you, build, like, it's momentum, right? Momentum is hard to be stopped. Like I would say an object in motion is difficult to stop. An object that's standing still takes a lot of energy to move. And that's why it's the hardest to start. I would say that in the messy middle, which we'll talk about the messy middle a little bit too. In the messy middle also gets, I would say you need a lot of, not necessarily willpower, but creating environments to help you succeed, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But when you get momentum, a lot of good things can start happening. So let me ask you this, because like building on successes, right? What is something extraordinary that you've done in your life? And, don't cut yourself short. And, I have friends that are like, hey, I was the first person in their family that, graduated with a bachelor's degree. First person that, say made it out the hood. Like I got a lot of friends that, did that. And it's like, hey, for some people I know, it was like, I was the first person to, to go to junior college. Right. But hey, don't cut yourself short. What's something extraordinary have you already done in your life? For me, when I write it down, it's, everything from making it to the pros, making it to the NBA Summer Pro League, where like nobody in their right mind would think I'd ever do that. Being able to, hey, like be, for as deep as I was, making it out of crime, to go from crime to go into industry where it's all about helping others, achieve success. Man, like I'm really, really proud of that. For a long time I wasn't, but I'm really proud of that. So ask yourself, and then building like, I'm proud because of Vigor Ground and building Vigor Ground with people that I love. And not necessarily like, people go like, oh, the building and stuff. No, it's the whole like idea, right? It's the idea of what it represents more so than the assets or the physical attributions or whatever it may be. So, hey, let's dig a little bit deeper here. And like, where did you start? Right. And where did you start? Like, hey, maybe it's, you had to, you working your way through college, or working full time and taking night classes. Maybe it was, man, I remember when I was like playing pro, running my brother's translation company when, he was on the road and traveling, and then doing like, I was doing quality checks on like these design within reach tables that were being built in Slovenia in a furniture factory. I mean, I've done it all. I worked in warehouses, and, I paid a way through a lot of stuff and learning, good ways and bad ways. But it's like, I look at that. So it's important. Like, where did you start? Right. And like, where are you now? And then ask yourself, do you think you can do something even bigger this time? And once again, the more of your successes that you list, what does it do? It gives you a feeling of accomplishment. Like, do you believe you can do something bigger this time? I mean, I believe you can. I believe everybody can do bigger things. Not to knock on you or anything else, but, like one of my favorite quotes is on my, Facebook or whatever, is like, you can't choose your potential, but you can choose to fulfill it. And I think that our whole lives, we're on this journey of fulfilling our potential. And that's part of the, I would say, joy that we have. Even the hard shit, right? The struggles, the obstacles, the bottlenecks, all of that. It's part of this journey and that we enjoy. So I want you to write down a sentence I know that I'm capable of, and then ... and then let it rip. Right. But at first, I want you to, see where you come from and what are some extraordinary things that you've done in your life, and don't hold back. And then finish off with like, I know that I'm capable of, and write that stuff out. Notice the pause. Right. Every time, like if I can throw in like little stuff that helps with how to present, how to do this, that, and the other in a podcast, I certainly will. And I know sometimes I just leave it there and don't shine a light on it. But I love educating on the science of coaching, presenting, tonality, frequency, all these different things when it comes to, to speaking. But big idea number 3, success list versus to-do list. And, for, I don't know how long, like everybody thinks about to-do lists, right? But to-do lists are overrated, and they become, put it this way, sometimes to-do lists can just create overwhelm or create a feeling of not being successful. So, and it often, like, they can cause us to major in the minor things. And I still do that sometimes. Actually, I've become way better at it. But like my to-do list would be like 30 things, 25 things. And right. And sometimes you're writing out stuff that are like, that isn't that important. So instead, learn to write success lists. So let's apply this to life. Let's apply this to business. Let's do a little drill. All right. What's on your plate tomorrow? So write 6 to 10, item to-do list. Let's make it 10. Let me get a round number. Let's make it a 10. Write out the 10 things that you got to do. Okay. Now, what's on your plate tomorrow? Right. Very, very simple. Think about it. Like, work stuff, important stuff for life at home, family. Now, circle the 2 most important tasks, maybe 3. I'm not letting you do more than 3, right? 3 most important tasks at most. Okay. That's your success list, right? Because when you have to battle it out, I was talking about this with Nate. He was like, how do you do this? And it's like, imagine, I used to play Mortal Kombat a lot. Imagine it's Mortal Kombat and like one to do goes against another to do, right? which one wins? All right, cool. That one stays, Then you take another 2 and it's like they battle it out. And at the end, like, man, when everybody battles it out, there's 3 at most left. Cool. That's your success list, because if you do that, you'll be moving forward, right? You'll be moving forward. And here's the thing, like somebody like, I might even have to answer this question. We're like, man, Luka, don't you have more than 3 things to do? Yeah, I have 300 things to do. But the thing is, some of them are pretty automatic, pattern, habitual, whatever. If I can focus on the 3 most important that move my life, my business forward, my team forward, right? And I do that 5 days a week. I mean, usually I'm working more than that, but let's say 5-6 days a week. That's 18 things on a success list that moves me forward. That's a lot. That's a lot, right? Versus having, hundreds of things to do, which you're going to eventually, like, you're going to do them, right? Like, but they don't matter the most. So let's move from to-do list to success list, right? Just that frame of mind when you're doing stuff, or like, hey, you know what? Like, write out your 10 and then circle, the 3 that are the most important with big letters. And then one of the big ideas that we'll get to, I'll touch on what to do with those. All right. But next big idea, number 4, is learn to say no. I raise my hand that I have not been great at this in my life, and have done a lot of practice. And like, man, even this week, I've said more no's than I would usually say. Now, one of the things I was doing a drill with our business coaching group, with my mentorship group, and it was like, what do you have to say no to more often? And it's a tough one. I said, hey, like, I say no to more podcasts. I got to say no to more meetings. Now, that's a toughie, right? Because a big part of building relationships for me has been meetings and meeting up and helping people out. And also, like, I've done a ton of like podcasts or guest stuff for people. And I kind of feel obligated, because I know, like, when I was starting off, I always, wish that somebody would give me an opportunity. And sometimes I got a lot of no's. So I try to help out more people. But the kicker is that, many a times when I say yes to that, I say no to something else. And if I said yes to that most important thing, I actually down the line would end up helping more people anyway. So, learn to say no, because once you figure out those important things, and whether it's from, Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, or if it's essentialism, or what matters most, right? Like, the most important things, once you have that, you have to say no to a lot of other potential things. And that's why it's so important to know your path and your target, and like specifically what you want to achieve, because it's easier to say no to stuff, right? So you can't let the vital few fall victim to the meaningless plenty. I'm going to say that again. You can't let the vital few fall victim to the meaningless plenty. It's a powerful sentence you might want to write down somewhere. And once again, when I share these stuff with you, hey, like, I'm learning, coaching myself. I have people in my life that keep me accountable, groups, coaches, mentors, so that I can continue to improve on this, right? But successful people know how to do this and do it effectively, right? So let's try this. Once again, let's go to some homework, workshop, application to life. So what's something that you already did today that you could have done later or not at all? That's deep. Let's work on it. What's something that you already did today that you could have done later or not at all? Write that out. And then what's a more important task that you still haven't done yet? Right? So what's a more important task that you could have done that would have moved your life forward, but you haven't done yet? So put that to work. Which leads us to big idea number 5, the lie of multitasking. I take a big breath here because, man, it's like I'm still so guilty of this. But once again, like, we have this continuum. I always try to explain things to people from anything that we're doing, right? The continuum of progress. Okay, success. I've shared this before. Success comes from succession, which means the next step, progress, moving forward, right? It doesn't mean optimal or the best or everything. It just means the next step. It just means moving forward. So when it comes to like multitasking, like the way I look at it is like, here is try to multitask everything, and here's me crazy clear with the one thing, right? And I used to be like down here somewhere, and now I'm like here, right? So I'm improving, and I'm happy about my improvement, but I certainly know I have a long way to go to be even more effective. So, we put it this way. First, we got to like erase just a few misconceptions from your brain about succeeding when it comes to work and business, right? And understand that multitasking is not a skill. I thought it was, like, man, I'm really good at multitasking. Sometimes I'll still say that shit, but study after study shows that it just decreases productivity. Because like if it's so crazy that where I really had that aha moment is like when I'm on the road, I can't work as much. Usually because I'm moving from place to place, or I'm on a flight, or, I'm on a seminar, I'm speaking, I'm doing whatever. And I'm like, shit, I got an hour and 15 minutes. I got to get this email out to the list. I got to send this to my assistant. I got to get this ad up. So I got to email this person. And it's just like, go. Right? So I like do one thing, done. I do the next thing, done. Do the third thing, done. Hour 15, like, oh shit, how's hella productive. Boom, I got to go. Right? And so I realized that like doing that one, like just the one thing, like that was the only thing I was focused on, and I'd smash it and I'd just be way more effective with it. Right. So even though I had multiple things to do in that day or in that time frame, like I zoned in on one thing. Right. So the question becomes, I mean, I know what the answer is for me, at least for a number of things, but like, what's something that often distracts you while you should be focused? Email, Facebook, texting, social media, IG. For me, just the phone in general, like just the phone. And the other thing that it is for me is the environment. Like anytime I put myself in a place where I'm going to be doing work and people can disturb me is not a good thing, because I'm a people person. I love communicating. I love solving people's problems. There's some subconscious things to work on there. I get it. But I know that. So like, I've started putting myself in different environments and positions so that doesn't happen. So whatever it is for you, right? So what's something that you often distracts you while you should be focused? And whatever that is, write it down. And then brainstorm 3 ideas to eliminate these productivity destroying habits, right? So every time I get the urge to, and then write out 3 things, right? Every time I get the urge to, I'm going to do, blank. Why am I saying this? Because you have to outline it, right? You have to make it real. Like you have to put it down on paper. You have to go and create a plan, right? And you have to create a plan B. What I mean by plan B is this, right? Every time this shit happens, I'm going to be prepared and do this, right? Every time in the morning when I get up and have a meeting with Andres and go over the current leads and where we're at, this, that, and the other, and then do an hour of check-in, like I'm going to turn my phone off, right? Or anytime I'm going to work on my systems, I'm going to turn my phone off completely, and I'm going to be at the new coffee shop down on 3rd, right? Because then that way, hey, I'm like, I got my AirPods in, I'm listening to some chill music and doing work. It can't be disrupted, right? So like write that out, like create that, okay? This leads me to number 6, is nothing is equal, right? Another lie we tell ourselves that everything is equal, but this is far from the truth. In fact, when it comes to productivity, nothing is equal, right? There's always a scale, always. It's just the fact is that like, because we don't stop and assess and acknowledge it, we end up treating it, giving everything the same weight, but it really doesn't. Like if we just sat there and we talked about what's so important to you, and like I said, this might be, for many of you, for me, like it's like personal life, it's a relationship thing. There's something that's really struggling, but it really matters to you. If it's family, if it's, like I said, the relationship that you're in, if it's somebody on your team, right? If it's something that you got to really address in the business because shit isn't going well, man, things have different weight. That's not as important as, I don't know, it's like not as important as making the next ad, right? Or it's not as important as like, I don't know, like studying for 2 hours, and like I love to study, but I'm saying like different weights. And so you got to ask yourself, and this is like the question for you is like, or should I say the action I want you to take is list the 5 most important tasks that you must accomplish this month, right? What are they? Like if you did these things this month, like what would they be, right? And so like write them down. Just write them down. So this podcast, you might be pausing a lot, by the way, which is cool Because I would rather, look, the way I look at it is like this. This is a perfect example of something that, you know, you could do the work of what we're going through right now in this episode. And if you actually do the work, you're going to get a lot of awareness and clarity around shit, right? Sometimes people don't do it because it's scary, right? Like I'll be saying stuff and like, oh, it's good ideas, Luka, but you know, you're going about your day because you are avoiding it, right? You're avoiding, you know that there's more important stuff. You know that you're being busy but not productive. You know that you're not maybe paying attention to these hard things that you got to address. And so you're like, fuck it, I'll do this later, right? But that's probably a sign. So with that said, though, but like, what's the 5 most important tasks for this month, right? Now, reorder them from the most important to the least important, right? Give them gravity, give them scale, weigh them out, right? Have them go Mortal Kombat, you know what I mean? Like, which one's the most important? Honestly, most of the time when you write it out, I think, you know, you're pretty clear on like, oh, okay, that's 1, that's 2, okay? But it's important because now, look, should I say no excuse. You got clarity around it. And then you can start filtering and like, hey man, today, did I spend time on the most important things for this month? Did I spend time on my 3 most important tasks for the day? Did I spend time, energy, and money on what matters most? And then the thing is, if not, hey, that's the check. What's the accountability? I mean, a big part of like, you know, a lot of these things, honestly, guys, you know, what is a mentorship group? I think coaching and mentorship is different. Alan Cosgrove mentioned this, and I really agree with that. Where it's like mentorship is like guidance. It's not like do this. You know what I mean? Like it's guidance. It's insight. It's questions that guide you the right way. It's accountability for you to become your greatest self and to do the shit in your business that you're supposed to do. So that's why, like I said, I do business mentoring. Right? It's not like now. Sometimes it's obvious. It's plans and paths and strategies and tactics, but just understand that like what that means. And like, that's why mentorship is so important. It's also like being committed to, and you know, what CB says, which is like to not, you know, to leverage relationships because you don't want to let these people down. You love them so much. You don't want to let them down. So you want to do the things that you said that you do. Big idea number 7 is habit over discipline. And man, if I've talked about habits enough, it's never enough until you don't change them, damn it. All right. But we often believe that successful people are more disciplined than we are. And I say we are. I mean, I would consider myself to be doing good. But like when I say, you know, there's always the next level, right? So there's always the next thing. Remember we talked about success, but it's false to think that successful people are more disciplined. The truth is that they use discipline, yes, but only until a habit is formed. And then they let the habit run on autopilot. Not completely on autopilot, but it doesn't make it easier. So whether it's like a certain time getting up in the morning, having a ritual that gets you focused, you know, writing down the things that you're supposed to do, the most importantly, shaping your environment to help you work better, right? Being around people that help you be better and challenge you and get you more effective in your efforts, right? And you've heard all types of, you know, it typically takes, I think the latest research is about 61 days to form a habit. Average, you know, some habits take 250 days. You know, drinking a glass of water in the morning might take you only 20, right? So with that said, you know, what is the habit that you would like to form or quit in the next few months? Also, if you hear this train in the background, it just means we're officially in a Vigor Life building, and the train comes around 2 to 3 times a day. So it might get pretty loud. I personally think it's pretty damn cool. And I, you know, if I get a chance, I always run outside and just watch the train roll by the building. But if it drowns me, I will pause for a second and then continue. But what is the habit that you like to form or quit in the next few months? You know, and it might be, hey, you're unhealthy. Like you're eating junk food way too often. Brings up a friend of mine that we just had a conversation. It was like, you know, driving an Uber became convenient. And all of a sudden, you know, the healthier meals turn into quick meals, turn into putting on some pounds, and developing a bad habit. And, you know, how do you change that so you eliminate those things from home, from work, from making it difficult to do? You know, we've talked about that, like make good habits easier to do, make bad habits harder to do. So, and what can you do every day to change, right? So for instance, for the next, 3 months, I'm not going to stop at, like, I'm still going to stop maybe at a a place to eat food, but it's going to be a different route. So I'm going to start driving different routes so that I go buy a different place and eat out at a better place. Because remember, like, man, this is one of the mistakes I think that people make when it comes to changing nutrition, right? Like, if you're eating a breakfast that's, a 2 out of 10 on the quality of food to achieve your goals, and you want to go to a 9 or 10, right? Like, all right, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to eat the best food. But if you take it from a 2 to a 5 or 6, man, that's great. And it's certainly like a better option. So for instance, if you go from a donut and some coffee, guess what? Like, what's a better option is like coffee with, a lean body, 20 grams of protein in there. And instead of the donut, doing like, I don't know, some Ezekiel bread with peanut butter and jelly, right? And somebody might go like, well, that's not the best option. No, but it's like way better than what it was, right? So make sure that we don't get stuck into this going from where you are to the best. And then because it's really hard for you to do the best all the time right now, you fall off and no bueno. Like, you got to just be better, right? So try that out, right? Like, remember how we said, like, hey, which habit would you like to change? And then how many habits would you like to change? What's one thing you want to change? Try it out hard. Like, try it out. No, it'll be hard, but, at first at least, but have strategies in place. And like I said, there's other podcasts too that deal with that. I'll put the links in the show notes. Big idea to me is that the limits of willpower. So willpower is a finite resource. I've said that before. It doesn't just apply. There's not like willpower in food and willpower in dealing with stress in your boss. There's just willpower, right? And it's kind of like a cell phone battery. Like, it diminishes after you use it. So you got to guard your willpower and use it in only the most important tasks. A lot of the stuff, notice how we're building on these things so that we can get to a place where you're only using it where it's the most effective, okay? So what's the most difficult task for you to do every day? All right, be honest with this, right? What is the most difficult task for you to do every day? Write that down. Now, block out time in the morning to do this activity first before you run out of battery life. And it may be, it might be in the morning. It might, like, the key is to know yourself, because nobody's the same. But, the key is not to go like, okay, I'm going to do this at 6 p.m., and that might be a training thing, right? Like, I've had a lot of clients that were like, I'm going to come in at a p.m. And it works for some people, right? It's always great. I'll say this. When you have a coach and when you have a group of people that you are committed to and train with and you've invested in yourself, you're much more likely to come and to succeed, right? When you got to do it yourself, it's a lot harder, right? But nonetheless, like, studies always show people that train in the morning are more compliant with their nutrition throughout the day. And so find that, like, if, hey, you want to write a book and you want to spend 20 minutes writing in the morning, man, write in the morning, get up earlier, right? My friend Matt Del Negro, who's also a great actor in Hollywood, both in, currently he was in Goliath. He was actually like one of his first bigger gigs was being in The Sopranos a long time ago. But he's writing a screenplay, and he knew that like he needed to get up earlier. And at the beginning, it wasn't a ton earlier, but like start getting up really early, like early to where like sometimes I'll go to bed at the time he's getting up. But that's what worked for him, because he knew like if he got up in the morning, he had the willpower, he got the focus, and he started, writing the script and got a ton done. Like just in the first month, he got a ton done, right? So block out that time. And like I said, look, it doesn't have to be hours before. It could be just 15, 20 minutes, and then you got 20 minutes to work on something 5, 6, 7 days a week. Big idea number 9 is work-life balance. So there is no such thing as work-life balance. Both, Craig Ballantyne says work-life mastery. Adam Grant says work-life. I forgot. Man, I'm drawing a blank on it. But it pretty much it was the fact that it's not. You're never going to have equal like balance. For most people think that it's balanced from a standpoint of time or maybe even energy, rather than like you're going to work. Look, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. You're an entrepreneur. Many a times it'll be longer than that. So you only have so much time for other things, right? So it's almost like, hey, you work hard when you work, right? I would say work hard, work focused when you work, and play hard when you play, right? Success is found in the extremes And, quickly going back and forth between work and life doesn't allow for those extremes. One, because you can't get into deep work. And that's been proven. Like I said, Cal Newport in Deep Work explains that every time you get interrupted, it takes you about 20 minutes to get back into deep work. So imagine if you're getting interrupted consistently, you're never really doing deep work, and that's part of the issue. Like with the issue that I said, like when I'm in environments where people are coming by, I get interrupted a lot, and then I can't do the great work that I could do. But it's the same thing when it comes to your family. Like, hey, look, it's better to spend 2 hours with really dedicated, focused time with your kids than have 5 hours with them and like you're on your phone thinking about work, stressing out about this. What are you gonna do tomorrow, right? See, now you're like flipping back and forth without being in an extreme. Much better to do 2 hours of like, ninja zoned in effective work, and then, spending, an hour for yourself walking the park, chilling, then doing another 2 hours of crazy effective work. And then, maybe some like more mindless work. And then you have time for instance, for family. Obviously I'm making up these timelines, but nonetheless, I hope you get the idea of what that means. So what is a time you can block out only for you and your loved ones? Nothing else, right? This is usually a good time to, maybe turn off the phone or put it in your pocket and never bring it out. And what is a time you can block out only for work, right? Only for your loved ones and your family, only for work, right? What are those times? I hope you're tagging along here and doing the work, damn it, and not just listening in. All right, this brings to big idea number 10, the growth versus fixed mindset. there's a whole book on that called Mindset. It's Carol Dweck, I think. But I've read that a number of times. It's one of the kind of, I would say, foundational books to read. But one of the major differences between successful people and their counterparts is that successful people, they not only dream massively, they believe that their first domino will eventually topple a giant, right? This is because they view failure as a way of growing rather than proof of who they already are. Now, let me repeat that last sentence because that's very important, okay? Viewing failure as a way of growing rather than proof of who you already are. And see, many people, when they fail, they go, this is what I am. I'm a failure. I kept failing, right? You've heard the phrase fail forward, or to me, failure is a lesson. I can never be who I am without failure, right? Nobody that's ever succeeded in anything could ever be anything without failure. And, like next week I'm doing I would say it's called a Fat Loss Forever seminar on the science of like what happens with yo-yo dieting, like how to actually keep the weight off, how to change your behaviors, get rid of bad ones, implement good ones. And one of the big things that happens with the psychology of, trying to take on a new habit is the whole premise of that you failed, so then like, oh fuck, I got to start all over again, which is not true. Like failure is just part of the journey, right? It's built in. That's how you got to look at it. So because you failed, you're not a failure. So I want you to write down your biggest failure in your life, right? If you want to, you can write out a couple, 2 or 3, no more than 3, but you can do as little as 1, right? But write out the biggest failures in your life. Now, answer this. How did that help you become a better person? See, now I have some direction, right? How did that help you become a better person? Really think about that, right? What was the lesson that you got from this, right? And that's a growth mindset, right? Fixed mindset is, I'm failed, like I'm no good, nothing's going to change. I can't change myself, right? Fixed mindset is I can't change myself. I'm not good at math, so I'm not going to do math because I can't get better at math, right? I'm good at this, so I'm going to do this, right? Because I'm good at it. So that's the difference between growth and fixed mindset. And a lot of people have a fixed mindset and then just go like, no point. Where you can get better at anything that you put mind, effort, energy, and practice into. Period. Now, will you get as good, hey, if you play basketball all day long, will you ever get as good as Jordan, LeBron James, or my guy Luka Doncic, right? El Matador from Slovenia, just so you guys know. And the answer might be no, right? But you can get a lot better. Right? You can get a lot better. And so yeah, it's like lesson, have a growth mindset. But seriously, do that drill, because I want you to actually see that. I want you to see how that failure helped you in life. Big idea number 11 is the thieves of productivity, right? So there's 4 thieves of productivity. It's the 4 main ones. Inability to say no to inconsequential tasks, AKA shit that doesn't matter, right? Shit doesn't matter enough, right? So inability to say no to inconsequential tasks is a big, I would say, productivity of a thief of productivity. Number 2 is avoiding uncomfortable situations. Oh man, how important is that, right? Like the truth is, whenever you avoid uncomfortable situations, it means you're always running away from, confrontation or I would say addressing shit head on, right? That matters, that you want to resolve. Most of the time that becomes something, look, it could be a lot of things. It could be with people, your boss, your team, significant other, your kids, your mom, your dad, stepmom, whatever it may be. But the point is, like, if you don't address it, one, it never gets better. Actually, usually just gets worse. And remember, I said, when there is no communication, negativity fills the space. So becoming, I would say, not only having the perspective that like you want to like go head on with these uncomfortable conversations, it's a game changer, because the sooner you address it, the sooner you move forward. Even if the result isn't what you want, guess what? There's a lesson there. There's something for you to get better at. And it's obviously not going to go away, right? I've mentioned this before. One of the better books, at least when it comes to communication, is Crucial Conversations. And I would say this, that try it. Actually, you know what? I challenge you. Everybody's got this. Like, damn it, I got it. Some things popped in my mind right now. But like, do something. I want you to step into an uncomfortable situation that you've been avoiding. A conversation, maybe, an action, maybe learning to do something that you're not comfortable with doing because you don't feel like you're good at it. And we just addressed the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So that's my challenge to you. Actually, you know what? Like, just message me and let me know what you're gonna do. I'm dead serious. Keep you accountable, damn it. Number three, thief of productivity is poor health. It's down there number 3 on my list right here, but I would say that could easily go to number 1. Am I biased because I'm a coach in the field of fitness, nutrition, performance? Sure, but look, man, the reality check is this: that like, if the better shape that you're in, your energy levels, your strength, your stamina, your mindset, like all of it improves, and you can stay more focused. Actually, you can see all the studies. I could pull them out like left and right now about, the better shape that you're in, how you can work better longer, stay focused longer. You don't get sick as much. You don't get low energy as much, you name it, right? So health, especially in it's like short-term and long-term, right? Long-term, if like health declines, man, it's harder to do stuff, right? Like you got to rest more. You're taken out because of sickness. You're, like I said, like you just can't work at the level and energy and effort that you could if you are, right? And I mean, I've beat this like a dead horse, but I'm going to keep bringing it up. I don't care, because it's that important, right? So for any entrepreneur that's listening, and honestly, a lot of times, it's for gym owners, and I get it, man. I've been there. I've done the, I still do like crazy days, but the crazy long days where you're like, you put your health on the back burner trying to help everybody else. But remember, you know what I mean? Like when a plane is crashing, you got to put on your mask on first, right? And like that's literally how it works, man. Take care of you so you can take care of everybody else. And number 4 is the thief of productivity is socializing and working with bad influences, right? And so that's part of the environment, right? Like the amount, like even if we look at like changing your health, which is a great example and like a leeway into this. Like if you put yourself in the wrong social working environments with bad influences, it's much harder. It's not impossible. It's way like 10x harder to make a positive change in your nutrition, right? You keep going to parties where they're serving, food that's not in line with your goals and people forcing you. Remember, we talked about willpower. It's like a battery on a cell phone. It's wearing out. And you keep saying, no. And it's like, boom, battery's like completely drained. Yeah, you're tired at the end of the day, like, fuck it. I'm gonna have these cookies, I'm gonna have this ice cream, I have whatever, right? So like you're putting, actually that was one of the, I can't remember, I think it was in Atomic Habits where it talks about that people that are successful with changing their habits, like that everybody's like, oh, they're more disciplined, but they put themselves in better environments so they don't have to use as much willpower. So the perception is that they're more disciplined, but they're using less willpower because they're putting themselves in environments that are more helpful towards reaching their goals, right? So if you have, I've did a whole show on this about like the environments that you put yourself in and how are they supporting your life goals, whether it's health, nutrition, relationships, finances, whatever it may be, right? And you got to assess that. Like, so if I keep bringing it up, 15, 20, 10 episodes apart, 3 episodes apart, I don't care. Like, it's still, if it hasn't been changed, everybody could keep improving that. But circle, the one that you're most guilty of, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So inability to say no to inconsequential tasks, avoid uncomfortable situations, poor health, or socializing, working with bad influences. Like, which one of those are you the most guilty of? And because we're like focusing on one thing at a time, brainstorm 3 ideas to eliminate this vice from your life, right? So circle the one that's the most important, or should I say you're most guilty of. And then from there, brainstorm 3 ideas to eliminate this from your life, right? To start cutting that stuff out. Leads us to big idea number 12, which is time blocking, right? So now that we've gone over some theory as far as, productivity goes and zoning in on a specific target, one thing, it's time for some, positive action steps. And understand that like successful people protect their time. So the best way to do this is time blocking. I continue to do this for myself, and certainly one of the first things that we do with business coaching clients in a mentorship program. And I'd have you consider, like, look, you want to look at your time. Like, are you blocking your time out? Like, do you have a schedule? Like, if you're an athlete, that's how I started looking at it. Like, as an athlete, I had a schedule. I get up at this time. I eat breakfast at this time. I go to practice. Come back from practice. I take a nap. I do, kind of like a brunch. From there, I do stretching. From there, I do, like, it was like really, really blocked out, especially when I was training at the highest levels. Everything was mapped out. So let's try it tomorrow for an example, right? Schedule out your day in blocks. So what will you do with each block? And like, be very specific, right? Morning. What are you going to do in the morning? Like, look at the time. That's why I love the planners. Like, whether it's Focus Planner, Brendan Bouchard's new Performance Handbook is good too. It doesn't matter which one you get as long as it works for you. But, planning out your day, being very specific. What are you going to do in the morning? At this time, this time, this time, this time. Okay, what are you going to do midday? What are you going to do in the afternoon? What are you going to do in the evening? What are you going to do before bed? And what I found, like, when I started doing this, I wouldn't be perfect. Like, it's not like I'd write it out and then the day went exactly how I planned it. No, but it would go more of the way that I planned it. And the more I keep doing it, the more it goes closer to, 100%, right? Of what I planned. And some days are a little more off, but guess what? I have a compass to come back to. And remember, we just did the drill of understanding what are the 3 most important things for that day and what are the 5 most important things for the year, right? So now that you've written that out, like, protect them, like protect them like you'd protect, something that really matters, right? And eliminate all possibility of doing anything else during that time. The great thing is that when you write that stuff down is that you actually get a lot more clarity around, what you should say no to, where you should be. It kind of gives you ideas around that. This leads me to big idea number 13, Parkinson's Law, right? We usually think that a given task will take much longer than it should, most often because we're not concentrating. And Parkinson's Law states that the work will expand to fill the time allotted for it. Ben Bruno brought us the joke, and I'm like, man, this is me, right? It's like, if you do something last minute, it only takes you a minute to do. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Because I used to stress out doing things more towards the end. But now I'm like, hey, I do well with pressure. And actually, funny thing about it is, like, I do great work when I have like just deadlines and compressed time, right? So let's take something that you need to do this week, right? How long do you think it'll take you? Like, be specific. Be specific, right? Actually, today is Thursday, so I basically got to do. I got less than a week to create a whole seminar and I have the idea in my head. I have like the kind of visualization and the pictures and the direction that I want to go. But, there's still a lot of work to do. Probably going to end up being about, 80 to 100 slides. My goal is to actually do less than that because that's my tendency. But, that might take me, I don't know, 20 plus hours, 25 hours or something, 30, who knows? Now, for you, what is that? What is it? How long do you think it'll take? Be specific. What's something you need to do this week? How long do you think it'll take? And be very specific with it. Okay? Okay, cool. Now half that time. Like cut it in half. Right? So this is how long the action item should take. Your productivity will go up, but the quality will not. And what I mean by that is like you'll be more productive. Your quality won't go down. And so do that. Cut it in half. Like for real, I want you to test this out. And you're going to see how the shit works, right? Because you are going to use as much time as you have to complete something. So if you have 10 hours, you'll take 10 hours. You got 2, you'll take 2. Now, yeah, of course, certain things like, hey, if you do something like that with the book and go like, you got 3 days to write a book. I mean, I think that, if you went nuts, actually, you could probably do that too. And then you'd need a shit ton of edits. But nonetheless, the whole point is that you're taking too long to do it and overestimating, and then you get busy and stressed out and anxious and whatever, right? Big idea number 14 is create a bunker. So as you're focusing on your time block, step number 1 is avoid distractions and, work diligently much quicker than you thought possible. And it will be difficult to maintain focus unless you prepare ahead of time. And I talk about preparation a lot, right? So you have to build what's called, I think Gary Keller says that, but it's like called a work bunker, right? Where I just mentioned about how I got a coffee shop now on 3rd that's become one of my work bunkers. So where's the best place for you to work without any distraction, right? What's a place? Maybe it's a new place. Maybe it's a place that you've already kind of figured out and it works for you. But be, I would say, intentional about it, right? What food should you bring so you won't have to leave? Like, what are some other things that you need with you so you don't get distracted and go like, oh, I got to go do this. I got to go do that, right? Have snacks with you. Have a protein shake. Have an energy drink. Whatever you got to do, right? But that's your work bunker. And what I like to do is I like to create different work bunkers for different things that I do. Obviously, this is a work bunker when I come into, Gene's I would say, office and shoot the podcast. In the morning, my work bunker is the office and the gym because usually I'm going over gym stuff. And like I said, then I got a couple coffee shops to Hyatt where I do specific things. But like those are my work bunkers. So what are your work bunkers and what do you need to do to not get distracted? Big idea number 15 is accountability is your friend. So there's no greater way to stick to your schedule than to hold yourself accountable to your peers. Man, and this is goes back to what I talked about, groups, mentorships, having a coach, right? So brainstorm 5 ways that you can make yourself accountable to your goals. And whether you want to, post them on Facebook in a group that you're part of, that you care for, share them with a person that you care about, or maybe that's keeping you accountable or gives you some leverage, whatever it is. But post 5 different ways. I mean, look, I'm going to tell you straight up, when I want to achieve some shit, I hire a coach because one, I'm going to hire some of the best coaches and then that's going to be a significant investment. And I'm going to make it worth my investment and do the damn work and be accountable to somebody I deeply do not want to let down or disappoint, right? It's very, very important. Big idea number 16 is being an author and not a victim, right? So along the way to your goals, there are going to be some problems, missteps, difficulties, bottlenecks, obstacles, whatever you want to call it, right? But like an author, when an unforeseen event arises, you find a solution, right? A victim, on the other hand, believes that they're doomed, right? But we're kind of playing back into that, fixed versus growth mindset. But think like an author, because I like to think it like this, problems are puzzle pieces, right? You solve a puzzle piece, where problems sometimes end up being oh man, the problem is so negative and I don't know if I can do anything about it, right? But don't feel like you're doomed. And it's that becomes very, very easy. I've had throughout the 13 years since we've had Vigor in Slovenia, man, I mean, we faced some stuff that it would be very easy to be that's it. And then initially, I've had those moments where oh, we're done. We're doomed. We're fucked, right? And then once that you get that out of the system as quickly as you possibly can, it's all right, cool. What can we do about this? How can we solve this problem? Right? How do we write it? How do we write this story? How do we make this story one of a success, of a, one of those, I would say movies where everything almost goes to it's like doom and gloom and Armageddon, and the hero rises and succeeds, right? Like that's how I look at stuff, right? Where I always go, I always tell my team, I go like, man, this is gonna make for a great story, right? When we win, like once we come out of the shit and we win, it's gonna be a great story, right? But it's like you're writing your story. Don't give the pen to anybody else, man. Like you should hold the pen and you should write your story in your book, and not let somebody else have the pen and write your story. Just remember that, right? Don't ever feel like it's doom and gloom. So what's the biggest problem in your life right now? Be real, man. Like be very, very, very real. What's the biggest problem in your life right now? And then ask yourself, is there any way for you to better handle it than you are right now, right? And just list 5 ways to improve the situation. Maybe you can't even get to 5, and that's okay. Like maybe you work to get 5, but you get 2 or 3, but that's 3 more than what you were thinking about because you were in your head thinking about how tough and challenging this current situation and problem in your life is, right? And that's being an author, right? What's the problem in your life right now? Are there better ways to handle it? List 5 ways that you can improve the situation, right? That's being an author. Okay, but I want you to do that. I want you to do that because that's a plan, right? It's getting you out of your head and getting you into a movement, like move forward direction, right? So then I like to say like, hey, I can improve this situation if, and then you got 5 things, but then if stands for intentionally forward. All right, that's always been a powerful thing. I'm like, man, I can change the situation if intentionally forward. So the things that you list is moving intentionally forward. Number 17, the focus question. Everything in your life comes down to answering the question, what's the one thing that I can do that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Right? So what's the crux of the one thing, right? So what's the one thing I can do in such a way that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Okay, so let's look at, actually, let's just work, let's start with your career or like your business or your professional side of things. Okay, so what's the one thing that you could do that by doing it, everything else in your business, financial life will be easier or unnecessary? It's a tough question, right? It's not like a eureka, right? Think it through. I'm gonna repeat again. Let's start with your career. What's one thing that you could do that by doing it, everything else in your business, financial life will be easier or unnecessary? That's work for you right there. Because that question is going to lead you to what's the next step? What's something that you can do about it? Big idea number 18 is dream big, right? Because your above answer is definitely a good start. But now we're going to go and then show how to get the one right answer. Okay. But first you need to know that like what your goals are. I keep bringing it back to like the whole knowing your targets, knowing what your goals are, being really clear about it, right? Because you got to have a clear target before you aim, right? And we're going to kind of stick with this theme and kind of go with business, career, in that area of life. So what's your absolute dream goal for your business and work life, right? And remember, we just talked like dream big. Dream big. I always like this. I did this drill with my mentors group, and I said, when we were writing all these things out, like, hey, what do you hate doing? What should you not be doing? What should you outsource? What should you do less of? And then my question there was, okay, if money was not an object, like how would you solve this problem, right? Because it makes you start thinking like big and without restriction. And then there was other questions that I'm not going to go into because part of that was obviously coaching each individual to a successful goal. But like dream big and be specific, right? And it might be like, hey, I'm gonna build my gym into a $750,000 business with 7 coaches, and I'm only coaching 15 hours a week. The rest I'm working on the business. I have a general manager. I spend this much time with my family. Be specific. Right? Be specific about it and dream big, bigger than what you have. Like, look, and maybe, you're stretching to go and you're going to say like, man, I just want to do $300,000 a year. And now you're like, you know what? Fuck it, I want to do $500,000. Like down the line, you'll keep pushing that dream as you build the confidence. But I want you to stretch it, and I want you to be uncomfortable, but dream big and be specific. And so then from there, it's like big idea number 9. It's like in 5 years, what is your 5-year financial career goal? Write it out. And then, like, let me know. As I say, let me know, as if you can talk through the podcast, but let me know by writing it down. Is like, hey, by achieving this, how will help you attain your dream goal, right? And take your time with this one. Like, man, this one is important. Like, I mean, I almost, that's why I said, look, there's a lot of big ideas here. Like, if you answer, 5, 6, 7, or just do this big one, like a lot of these will help you get clarity and it'll help you move forward with your business and life. Might not be able to do everything. That's why I said whatever resonates with you. But obviously, like, I'm piecing these together because if you do this, you'll surely get a lot of clarity of where you are, what you need to do, right? So take your time. It's important, right? So what is your 5-year financial goal and career goal? By achieving this, how will it help you attain your dream goal? So then big idea 20 and 21, a year, a month, right? So let's break it down. Like, we've always done this reverse engineering. Okay, cool. What's your 1-year financial career goal? And how by this, how will it help you attain your dream goal, right? So we're just breaking it down 5 to 1, and then we're going to a month. Same thing. What's your 1 month financial career goal? And how by achieving this will it go towards your dream goal? But I've talked about this before, the whole reverse engineering, going big picture and reverse engineering down to a month, a week, right? A day. And that's your next big idea, is like break it down to a week and a day. Because what it ends up doing is it gets you really clear targets. And sometimes you'll figure out, like, you know what, this doesn't matter. Cool. Reassess the target, right? So we go from 5-year to 1 year to 1 month to 1 week to daily. Because it starts zooming in and giving you, I would say, targets for the day. Right. And at some of the stuff that we were talking about at the beginning, it comes full circle because you may have written some things down. And now as you're breaking it down, going like, you know what, those things aren't even that important. Right. So setting your one thing, right, like goal setting to now. So in other words, based upon your dream goal, like what can you do right now to further your career? And by doing it, like everything else will be easier. Right. And this is the real kind of like one thing. Right? A series of actions to take immediately. And think of it this way. We talked about the domino principle, right? How one domino can knock out all these other dominoes. Well, with this true one thing, that is the answer to the question. I mean, the answer to that question is your first domino is going to start knocking out all the other dominoes. So with that said, like, I hope that you got a lot of clarity around this, because you can now, breaking this down, like because I've done this before, I'm going to touch on it, but we're not going to go deeper into it. Ask yourself what the one thing is in the area of your health. What's the one thing that you can do to improve, relationships, whether it's with your kids, with your partner. Maybe if you don't have kids or a partner, it might be an important relationship in your life, maybe with your parents, with your, siblings. And once again, like, be specific about it. And be specific about it and focus on the one thing and the number one habit, because always ask yourself the focus question, right? So doing the most important thing is always the most important thing. Dan Johnson says, like, make sure that the goal continues to be the goal, right? So what's the next one thing that you need to do, right? In those different areas. Maybe some areas you don't even care about right now. Maybe it's, on the relationship side of things, maybe that's not your focus and it's health. Or maybe it's this one thing in business. But what's the next one thing that you need to do? Now go do it. And when I say now go do it, I'm saying, like, man, go do that shit today, right? And let me know how that feels, right? And then you have, like, hey, what's the next thing after that? And then what's the next thing after that? And you notice that, like, we come back to this idea of just working on one thing at a time. And when you do, you become so much better, right? So much better at actually getting shit done faster, better, more effectively, and moving you in the direction where you want to go. So remember that the repetition is the mother of habit. So let's make this just easy on you, right? Write down on 5 pieces of paper, what's the next one thing that I need to do? In essentialism, it's there's an acronym called WIN, what's important now. But take sticky notes. I still like sticky notes, right? So where are the best places to hang up this mantra for you to be a constant reminder, right? Tape to the front of the computer, in different office spaces, in your workspace, at home. Like, where are the 5 different places, right? So that's the mantra. Like, what's the next one thing that I need to do? Because mother repetition, like, you're going to keep remembering it, and you're going to, obviously, it puts you back in the check to go like, oh man, what am I working on? Shit, I got to work on this. Now, if you went through the whole process of what we talked about in this podcast, then you're going to realize that like, man, you've narrowed stuff down, right? Like really, I mean, the goal of all this is like figuring out what really matters, narrowing down to the most important things for you to do, and then just do that one thing at a time and then just keep doing it. Now, I'm sure that like, you're like, oh man, I've heard this shit before, Luka. I'm sure you have. Just like we've all heard a lot of things, it doesn't mean that we're doing them. And you know, certain things you're going to hear again and again, and it's not going to be like, oh man, like you just mentioned some revolutionary, crazy stuff. But I wanted to do this at this time of year because that is how you're going to succeed. A lot more than you did last year. And if you were successful last year, great. Were you doing that? Awesome. Do more of it, right? The clearer that we get, the more that we figure out what matters, the more that we chop it down to the most important tasks, and the more that we do that one thing, the faster we move forward, period. And like some of the principles that I shared and these big ideas that I shared will help you do that. And like, if nothing else, like keep it as a guide, as a cursor to, you know, where you're going. Once again, like sometimes there's like, you could read one book and it's so profound, man, if you just kept reading that and doing this stuff in it, like you'd move so far. And so I wanted this to be like a kind of like a punch into reality, a kind of a recheck of what works and what's going to help you, you know, succeed and move forward this year. And actually doing those drills so that, guess what, you can create a path and you know the direction that you're going into, and just do the stuff that matters, do the stuff that's important, do the one thing now. Whew. All right, I didn't have my usual energy drink, so you know that was a toughie. With that said, once again, put it into play. Take action on this, because if you take action, you're going to feel a certain way. You're going to feel good about yourself. It's going to create momentum. Momentum is difficult to be stopped. As with anything else, guys, I love and appreciate you for tuning in. Like I said, spend your time and energy listening to this. Please apply it, because then it really, really creates value. Also, I'm loving all the reviews, 5-star reviews. Please leave your comments. I always appreciate them. Share it. That's how it goes. You know, it goes around to other people, and if it can affect another person to take action and make a change, I love it. A couple of things while you're listening to this is, at Vigor Ground, we have a number of events coming up. I'll put the links in the show notes, but one of them is the Dr. Stuart McGill and Brian Carroll seminar that is on February 16th, The Gift of Injury. So all about how to help you get out of back pain, back to performance. So basically think about rehabbing the back, but not only rehabbing the back, but also getting back to being able to do high level performance. I mean, in this case, like I said, Brian Carroll went to, you know, a career ending back injury, what most people leave, to being able to get rehabbed and go back to, you know, world record numbers. So it's, put it this way, if it works there, it's going to work for any athlete. It's going to work for any person in the general population. So that's a one-day seminar, The Gift of Injury. I'll put the link down in the show notes. We also have CPPS, so Joe DeFranco and Smitty's certification coming on March 9-10. Also put a post on that. And we have functional range conditioning, FRC, here on May 18th and 19th. And all of those, you want to make sure if you're serious about doing it, to sign up, because they do sell out. For the McGill and Brian Carroll event, we have the early bird is on the 22nd. So it's ending on the 22nd of January, and you'll save $200 signing up for that. So those are some of the events that are coming up. Also, this week I'm signing a contract to do the Vigor Ground Fitness and Business Summit 2019 in Seattle. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Already got some speakers committed. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be a blast. With that said, last thing, if you are a gym owner that has at least, I would say, 30 clients, or whether it's private group training, and you are looking and committed to growing your business, whether it is systematization, generating more leads, more profits, improving sales, also building a team so that long-term it's a predictable and sustainable business, and you're looking for mentorship and guidance from somebody that's helped hundreds of fit pros achieve that, reach out to me, whether it's DM me, email me, and like I said, we'll set up a strategy session and see if it's the right fit. With that said, love and appreciate you. Coach Luka's out. See you next time.